Hi there guys, this is going to be a video about the Ten Commandments, and the two comparisons I shall make is between the traditional Textus Receptus Ten Commandments and the Catholicised commands, which I'm sure you'll know the difference already. Something to do with idols, but we'll just get right to it. Now there's also three schools of thoughts of how to keep the Ten Commandments, which I'll go through as well. One of them is faith-based, one of them is legalised-based, and the other one is faith-based but actually cancels out keeping them. So I think that's the last one is probably the most dangerous one. Exodus 20:1-17. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Now the Hebrew for capital L-O-R-D, as found in some of the early King James versions, is Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, which is capital Y, capital H, capital W or V, and capital H for the Vav. Some pronounce it as a V, and some pronounce it as more as a W, or some people actually pronounce it more as a U. It's entirely your preference, how the Holy Spirit would move you to do that. Now the equivalent in the Catholic version simply says, God said, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of slavery. So no reference to the land there. The first commandment, thou shalt have no other gods before me. You shall have no gods except me. And the footnote here says the above is exactly what is contained in the teaching of the Catholic Church, complete with ellipses. And the second commandment is, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generations of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. And the Catholic version simply says, you shall not speak the name of the Lord to misuse it. So again, they've just cut out the second command about idols, because of course that particular denomination of Christendom are filled with idols, filled with statues of saints, statues of women, the mother-child worship they had back in Babylon and so forth, which comes from a different pagan system of worship of Nimrod and Semiramis and so on. You can do the research yourself. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that takes his name in vain. And the next one just systematically goes on to keep the Sabbath day holy. Fourth commandment, to remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. 6 days thou shalt labour and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor son nor daughter, manservant or maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor the stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that them is, and rested the seventh day, wherefore the Lord blessed it the Sabbath and hallowed it. And the next one systematically goes on to honour your father and mother. Now you see the difference in detail here. This is the dogma as taught by the main body of Christendom, which many people have come out from due to really the traditions of their forefathers. But they see there is a difference there. There's even blessings and curses there, as mentioned in the Ten Commandments. Blessings for keeping them and for not keeping them. And the fifth command is, honour thy father and mother, that the days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God gave thee. Now, that doesn't mean to say that you need to obey your father and mother your entire life. Some people hold to that. But really it's just saying to honour them. And really to honour them just means to simply obey the Lord your God, and that will honour your father and mother. And obviously, up until about the age of 12, I think we're not responsible for our sin. But after that, we are responsible. And most families have a father that they have someone there of authority that brings any sons, any daughters up to take account of their actions and to be responsible, and therefore to make their own decisions in life based on the faith they have in the Lord. The next one just simply goes on to, you shall not kill. Okay, and that is the sixth command. Thou shalt not kill, or thou shalt not murder. You shall not commit adultery. Thou shalt not commit adultery. You shall not steal. Thou shalt not steal. You shall not testify against your neighbour. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbour. Lie, basically. You shall not covet your neighbour's wife. And it's a little bit more. In the original one it says, thou shalt not covet thy neighbour's house, covet thy neighbour's wife, manservant, maidservant, ox, donkey, or anything that belongs to his neighbours, anything at all. And the last one here actually just sort of covers what I just said there. It just says, you shall not covet your neighbour's possessions. So they've just split that last command up into two, and the one about idolatry has been completely lost in the Catholic Church. Now there is three schools of thought, and if you'd like to turn to Romans 3:31, which reads, do we then make void the law, or the Torah it says in the Hebrew, through faith? God forbid, yea, we establish the law. There's around about over 600 parts of the law after the commands, which have been fulfilled. Certainly the book of Hebrew goes into detail in the ones which have been fulfilled that we don't need to any longer keep, which is to do with the sacrifice of animals and so forth. But the other parts we do keep, because they actually help us keep the Ten Commandments, and we can go through them another time. Those that love me obey my commands are not grievous, and so on and so forth, that talk about keeping the commands. And as Paul said there, we don't do away with the law or the commandments because we have faith in the Messiah. No, as it's written in Hebrews 10:16, he will write his commands and his law on our hearts and minds. Now that is the proof of a true conversion. And if you read John's epistles and gospels, he's always talking about those that keep the commandments are the remnant. Okay? Doesn't matter if it's a big denomination or it's just yourself. Basically, keeping faith in the Messiah means that you will keep the commandments in faith. And it's not a legalistically based thing. Now this is the next school of thought, whereby if you're brought up in tradition, you will only try to keep these commands in the flesh without the Messiah, without being converted or born again. Generally, we have no understanding about keeping the Ten Commandments, because in Judaism there's so many different branches there as well. Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Essenes and so on, had all different ideas about how to keep the commandments, but there is only one way of keeping them in the New Covenant, and that's in the Messiah. And the last school of thought that we have is one that we say, yes, the Messiah kept the commandments for us, but because he kept them for us and said that he was going to fulfill them, we no longer need to keep them. Now that's a very, very backward way of thinking. So even if you have an understanding about, let's say, how about the Sabbath day? I no longer need to keep the Sabbath day because the Messiah kept it for me, and I won't set apart a day for meeting with God and with other believers. It doesn't make sense, pretty much. Is that what Paul's letters were about? Some of the converted Gentile ones were thinking this way, and he was becoming very vexed with them, very angry. If you read some of the discounts, and also taking a step back to the legalistic way of keeping them, there may have been Jews that were also trying to sacrifice animals, even though the temple had been destroyed, and he was trying to explain that the Messiah, in Hebrews, that the Messiah had fulfilled this literally for us, that we no longer need to do that. We know what fulfilled means. The Messiah kept all the law for us, and also paid for us not keeping it. But after we become converted, does that not mean to say that we should keep the law? Because remember in 1 John 3:4 it says that sin is transgression of the law. So, you should no longer really sin after your conversion. Yes, to have a true conversion, you should be very aware of your sin, because the Holy Spirit gives us a great conviction about our sin, whichever part of the commands generally that they are. I think that Christendom pretty much keep the last 6 commands, but the first 4 commandments, of course, the Christendom doesn't keep. The true name of the Lord, as I said in the start of this, is the Yod He Vav He. So we can use this name in worship and praise and in prayer. And remember that his Son has also got a name that's like that. It means that his name, Yahweh saves, which is Yeshua or Yahshua. And we can use that name in prayer effectively and reverently. If you don't want to discuss this, which if you don't, that's fine. One thing I could put into discussion is perfume toilet roll. Why? Thanks for listening.